LEGO Knights have come a long way since they first started to come out in the late 70s. But one thing has remained almost unchanged in all of that time: the cape. Sure, there are a few variations out there that were made for LEGO Castle, but for the most part, the capes that you use on your LEGO Knights were made with a bunch of different themes in mind, not just Castle. So today I'm going to be upgrading a ton of my medieval minifigs with capes that were made just for them. These were made by Minifig Realms, a new company that's producing a ton of capes, sheaths, and other accessories made specifically for fans of LEGO Castle. This is like basically a dream come true for castle freaks like myself, and I'm really excited to get into this. Now, full disclosure, I did receive part of this order for free, but the vast majority of the capes were purchased by me. So with all of that out of the way, let's get started. For our first knight, I took a fur-lined cloak and a waist scabbard. This part is great because it allows for you to holster a sword or almost any other weapon on the figure's side. We'll be using this with a mismatch of castle parts from over the years. The torso here is an older one from my childhood collection that I've added some newer arms and legs to. Adding new parts and accessories like this to an older torso can be a super reliable way to modernize older castle figures. I do this all the time. And the same is true for these cloth pieces. As you can see, the scabbard not only works for swords, but also helps to hide any printing on the hip piece. This can be very helpful when mixing different minifigs together to avoid the very classic double belt problem that I'm sure you're used to. Now, this knight's weapon of choice is a broadsword. It's a bit wider than pretty much every other LEGO sword out there, so I was very pleased to see that it still works with this scabbard. Finally, we can finish the fig with the previously mentioned fur cape, some spiky shoulder armor, and a kettle helmet. Now, you might have noticed that this fig does have realistic skin tones, but don't worry, if you're into yellow instead, exactly half of the 60 figures that we show off today are going to be colored in the classic style. Next up, we'll take a look at one of these smaller fur capes and another scabbard. This time we're using it with a classic LEGO greatsword, which fits in beautifully on the waist of this Wolfpack Marauder. The fur textured cape also works wonderfully for the rugged Wolfpack in my opinion. The texture is extremely soft and it gives you some nice variation with its skinnier frame. It's a lot smaller than any official cape that I'm aware of, and obviously the one that we just used. Though I will say it doesn't look great from the front as it's mostly hidden behind the figure. Moving on to the next fig, we'll take a look at this large bright blue cape that you can see has a slit down the back. Predictably, this is so that you can slide a weapon into it. I've gone with another greatsword here, but later on we'll be trying out some other options like spears, axes, and all kinds of different swords. But the sheath isn't even my favorite part about this. You might have noticed that the shape of the cape is a little bit different than the official LEGO ones. The unique layout of this allows for the sides of the cape to come around on the front of the minifig. This obviously just looks way more medieval than the basic LEGO cape. Medieval cloaks were often held in place by a brooch that sat just below the neck. So this piece is trying to emulate that look, and I think they did a pretty great job. This is seriously such a lovely design that totally elevates the modernized Crown Knight that I made. Next up, we'll take a look at a red version of the exact same cloak design that we can add to one of my Falcon Knights. As you can see, the print on the torso has the brooch already that I was talking about, so this cape is a perfect match for the fig. Again, these changes are so simple, but they make a huge difference in how the overall character looks. Okay, now I want to switch things up with a more historically accurate looking knight. So I'm taking a neck scabbard and another new cape design. This one's shape has a slimmer profile than the cloak, and you can still see the cape from the front, which makes it a nice option for replacing the official Mando capes that castle fans like myself have grown to love. It also has a slit in it for a weapon, but I'm going to be using a pair of armor on top of the cape that blocks that off. So I went ahead and added this neck piece over the armor so that we can still sheath a sword on his back. Both of these parts come in the same dark tan color, so I think they make for a lovely match, especially with the plume coming out of his helmet. I wanted to make a late medieval era knight, like 14th century kind of thing, 13th century, and I think this character looks pretty close to what I had in mind. For our next figure, I wanted to make a Black Falcon Scout, so I took this olive green cloak that has a nice flowing design to it. Then I grabbed another one of those neck pieces so that he can carry both a sword and a quiver of arrows. This looks insanely cool to me, and it's something that I didn't even know that I wanted for my archers until I tried out this combo of parts. It looks more realistic like this, as archers would generally carry around some kind of melee weapon in case of emergencies. But at the end of the day, realistic or not, it just makes any archer look way cooler. On the other end of the realistic spectrum, let's now make a barbarian sorcerer. To do this, I took a waist cape that comes with a little slot for a dagger to sit in. With this skirt piece, I can make use of these dual molded printed legs. Normally, these would be unusable for medieval or fantasy figures, but with the cape, it covers up the bright printing on the sides and only shows the yellow legs and black shorts. And now we can just simply slide one of the new daggers into his belt. I love this dagger piece, but it's been kinda hard to fit it into figures that carry other accessories, so a belt holster like this one is like a dream come true. And to complete the sorcerer, I gave him a tattered official LEGO cape and a bolt of lightning. I think he turned out looking really unique, and he should fit in well with my desert cultist that I made in a previous video. Next up, I think it'd be fun to make a knight for the new Griffin faction. So I'm gonna grab one of those red capes, but this time without the slit in the back. With this, we can add it to a bunch of fairly old pieces. The torso and legs are both from the 2000s, and I believe the helmet first came out in 1979, right around the time that the castle theme first started. So again, this goes to show that you can make really old parts and prints come alive with some really simple changes. I've given this old-timer a modern greatsword and of course one of the new Griffin shields. To be honest with you, apart from the discontinued gray helmet, this figure looks like he could have been released like yesterday. And since we're already on the Griffin Knights, I'm gonna make one more with a realistic skin tone. Grabbing a red cape, we can also make good use of one of these shield slings. These are meant to be used with the Viking round shield, but I think they work just as well with the new heater shield. The way it works is you slide the cloth in between the handle, and then you push a sword or other weapon through to hold it in place. This frankly is a bit frustrating to set up, but once you've gotten the hang of it, it looks unlike anything else you can do with LEGO minifigures. There has never really been a good way to display shields on the back of a minifig until now, at least to my knowledge. It is such a terrific way to have a minifigure just stand around without their weapons in their hands, and it's going to be so useful for staging characters around in my mocks. For our 10th minifig of the video, let's make a simple Viking Jarl. I feel as though that this cape would work well for a Jarl, and it'll give us an excuse to try out the Dane axe with the sheath. It makes the cape sit slightly different on his back, but I still think it works lovely for holstering any kind of bar-based weapon like this axe. As for the Jarl himself, I've given him an old Viking torso that I added some pale arms to replace the original yellow ones. Finally, he's also got the runic legs from the Viking Village Ideas set that, in my view, goes quite well with this torso, even though they're different colors. Let's continue with the Viking theme and make a Wolfpack Berserker. To do this, I took one of the custom fur capes, this time in gray, and I put it on top of some brown, ratty looking clothes. But to really sell the Berserker idea, we should definitely add another layer of wolf pelts. So I took this piece from an old Ghost CMF that we can plop on top of the fur cape, along with the much needed wolf head. Layering the different capes on top of each other worked way better than I originally expected it to, and even though the colors are slightly different than each other, I think it still looks pretty awesome. This is easily my favorite Berserker that I've ever made, and he'll make for a great addition to my Wolfpack army. Next up, I want to make an Orc Chieftain. So we're going to use the same cape, this time in brown, along with another one of these shield slings. As you can see, it also works with the Ovoid shield, and it can even fit a spear inside of it. Now, to be clear, this is not the original intention of this piece, but I think it works fine as long as you're okay with putting a little bit of extra wear on the cloth. The damage to the cloth is worth it to me because, I mean, come on, look how good this looks. I usually don't have my orcs carry shields around in their hands, so being able to fit one on their back is just the coolest thing like ever, and it's going to completely change how my orc army looks in the future. We're going to be upgrading some more of them later on in the video, so I'll chill on the orc hype for the time being. Instead, let's make another Viking to go with the Jarl. To start him off, I'm going to take this very familiar looking olive colored cape. I was never a huge fan of this style of cape, but I know a lot of other people were, and to be fair, I think it's way more versatile in olive green than it ever was in blue. So I've placed it on top of this Viking who uses a bunch of different parts, from an old peasant torso to some more recent dual molded legs. I wanted this guy to be like as stereotypical as possible, so I ended up giving him a long ginger beard and hair. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe this guy should actually be the Jarl instead of the other guy. This fella just he looks more the part, if you know what I mean. Anyways, next up, I'd like to upgrade one of my new Snake Knights. Minifig Realms has been pretty spot on so far with the colors, I'd say, but sadly, the purple version of the cloak just isn't quite as vibrant or bright as I would have liked it to be. As you can see next to the snake parts, it is a completely different purple, closer to like a plum shade than LEGO's dark purple color. With that being said, I still think this is an upgrade compared to the black cape that the set came with. And of course, you can also put a sword on his back, so that is a huge upgrade with or without the proper color. For our next figure, I want to try out these leather bracers. They're meant to go on the minifigure's hands, and then you kind of shove them into the arm. This is annoying to set up. They mention on the website that you need good dexterity and patience to do this, and I think they're right. If you are into this look at all, then I'd say give them a try, but personally, I am just not a fan of these at all. They really aren't that hard to put on with just a little bit of patience. I just generally don't like custom cloth pieces that are too outside of what LEGO already does, and that's what these are for me. The scabbards are similar enough to things that LEGO has already made in the past to feel natural, but these bracers just don't. So to continue on with the desert theming a little bit, I want to upgrade one of my Raven Knights. These guys are my favorite faction ever, and these black cloaks are just begging to get folded into the army. This guy looks really sick with the new cloak, and I've also added on a printed helmet from Cultbricks with a yellow feather on top. It's a very basic upgrade, but I think it looks really nice on him. And next up, we're going to make one of the Raven Knight's closest allies. For this, we'll grab a brown fur cape and a new type of waistcloth. This one has a small slot for a dagger, similar to the other ones, but it doesn't do anything else. It's a nice subtle way to add a dagger or maybe even a small sword to your figures, and it'll work great on my orc archer. I like that there's an option for the sheath without needing the whole skirt piece around it. It's really unintrusive, and it barely adds any unwanted height to the fig, which is a really nice touch. This is a new version of my really old orc archer that just looks perfect now, I think. For the next fig, I'm going to grab another one of these skinny fur capes and a shield sling so that we can make an upgraded Kraken Knight. This shield looks so good on his back, and I just love that it means that you can display a knight without needing them to carry around all of their accessories at the same time. Being able to have free hands for the minifig just makes such a huge difference in setting up mocks, and in general, it's just a very sleek look. Now, since we're already talking about them, let's make a couple more Kraken Knights with realistic skin tones. This one's gonna get a large green cloak along with some other fitting accessories like chainmail legs and an axe. I really love how the chainmail legs look with the Kraken torso, and obviously any round shield works wonders on the Kraken Knights. For the last Kraken, I figured it makes sense to use another green cloak, but this time a slightly smaller one. This version of the cape doesn't fully wrap around the front of the neck, which makes it a perfect candidate to combine with shoulder armor, as it gets tucked neatly under it, and it just looks so much cleaner with shoulder armor than a regular LEGO cape does. I don't know if this was the intention behind the shape of this cape, but it looks so good with shoulder armor. Anyways, next I'd like to make a realistic skin-toned Fright Knight, as I don't think I've ever made one of them in a video before. Again, these fur capes go so well with a plethora of factions, and the Fright Knights are no different. I decided to go with the 2019 version of the shield, which looks more realistic than the newer Fright Knight shield to me. The Fright Knights are just better suited for a grittier look than a lot of other LEGO factions. And, to be honest with you, so are the Red Dragon Knights, so for this one I grabbed a red cloak and one of the waist scabbards. Now you might actually recognize this character if you've seen my Medieval Warfare video, where he commanded the Red Dragon Mercenary Company. In that video, they fought the Black Falcons, so for this video, I decided to give him a peg leg after apparently losing one in battle. It definitely goes well with his eye patch kind of like pirate look that he has going on. He feels a bit more personalized and special, I don't know. Next up, I wanted to make an evil looking character, like almost possessed if that makes any sense. So I took a red cloak and a combo of really dark colored armor minifig parts to make this orc cultist. Now, he's not an orc himself, but he follows a particularly grotesque army of orcs that we'll see more of later in the video. Keeping with the kind of like creepy monster vibes, I'd like to remake one of my favorite mercenary figs that I've ever done before. To do that, we're going to take one of these flowing blue capes and add it to a werewolf mercenary. The torso and legs actually come from a Bib Fortuna Star Wars figure, but they pass fine as medieval clothing if you ask me. I've used these parts many times before for medieval and fantasy characters, but I think they work best with this brown werewolf head. To mix things up a little bit from what we've been doing, let's quickly upgrade some of the brand new horse knights. Starting first with the king, he's going to get a blue cloak with a slot for a sword. This was already such a gorgeous looking figure, but changing out the standard LEGO cape for this one just makes him 1,000 times more pretty. Now we'll do basically the exact same upgrade for one of my custom horse knights. Her version doesn't have the sheath, but that's fine because she uses a flail and a quiver. Previously, I gave her a white cape, but after using this blue one, I think it's the way to go for custom horse knights, for the most part at least. So I did the exact same thing for this guy, and since he uses a crossbow, no sheath was necessary. Finally, our last horse upgrade will be for the archer. The original blue one that came with the set had a beautiful blue hood, but it didn't have a cape to match. So this smaller version of the blue cloak, of course, looks great with the newly colored hood. Now, we haven't really done any non-warrior characters so far, so let's make a few. One of my favorite autumn and winter hobbies is baking, so let's make a baker first. This is a darker red cape. It's not quite the same as the official LEGO dark red capes. It has maybe more of a pinkish hue than the official ones. I added it to a red peasant torso and these legs that I believe are from Harry Potter. Next up, we're going to make a greedy looking tavern owner with the same exact cloak. He's dressed up all in the finest clothes and also carries a silver chalice. We are now exactly halfway through all of the figs with 30 more to go, so let's get into it. I haven't made any elven characters in a while, so I'm going to grab these two capes, one in dark green and the other in olive. This smaller olive one is pretty unique, but I'm not quite a fan of how it looks on its own. So I placed this intricately detailed breastplate on top of it. And then I added the other cape with a spear on his back. The spear definitely falls through a bit easier than the swords, but I still think it looks great on a fig's back, and I am so excited about how this elf turned out looking in the end. He has a nice foresty vibe to him. All of the extra neck accessories actually kind of help make him look a little bit taller than your average minifig, which I think makes sense for an elf. And for our next fig, we're going to make one of those cultish orcs that I mentioned earlier, using a black fur cape and this dual sheath for the neck. This one is basically perfect for two katanas, so that's what I went with. I thought these blades just fit an orc assassin character better than anything else. This guy has a super sick combination of parts as well, with a Harry Potter head, Hobbit body, and I believe Star Wars legs. The face print and torso are also just so grotesque and gross. I love how this guy looks. Now moving back to the Snake Knights, we're going to make another one of them with a purple cloak and the shield sling piece. This time we're using the snake shield and a greatsword to hold everything in place. I think this is such a natural look for the new Hyrule shield piece, and even though I think it moves around a lot on the minifigure's back, it never looks that off, if that makes sense. It always looks realistic. It doesn't look bad or like out of whack. Anyways, now I want to do a little upgrade for one of my recent videos. We'll take this cloak with a sheath and add it to my Green Dragon Knight King. Being able to sheath a sword on his back without using the satchel trick is such a nice improvement over my previous version of the fig from a few months ago. So with him done, let's upgrade a few more of my older factions. The Wolfpack CMF came out earlier this year, and I think these fur capes are perfect for them. So I'll grab a dark tan one to upgrade one of my Wolfpack bandits. This guy's also got a molded fur neck piece that will basically act as a continuation of the cloth and the print on the torso. This trio of parts makes for such a cool looking character, and frankly, all of this together looks like an official minifig from a set. Up next, we're going to upgrade one of my Wolfpack archers. The black cape obviously makes sense here, and this guy also has a pair of Uruk-hai legs, which I think also goes well with the Wolfpack torsos. But the sad truth is, these legs are actually cracked and are stuck in the torso. I had this happen to another one earlier this year, and so I'm just never going to remove these legs from this torso ever again. Outside of that little tragedy, let's now upgrade one more Wolfpack before moving on to some other factions. For this one, I'm going to grab another fur cape and a neck scabbard. Together with these, a Wolfpack torso, and Obi-Wan legs, we can make a super unique looking Wolfpack squire. If you have a bunch of random Star Wars figs that you don't care about like me, I would highly recommend trying to use them to make medieval minifigures. You would be surprised just how many of these parts can work really well for LEGO Castle. And with the Squire finished, we can now move on to making something a little bit different. For this, we're going to grab a teal cloak and a couple of different, pirate-looking accessories. The idea here was to create a fancier-looking Kraken Admiral, if that makes sense. I don't know how well this guy fits in with the regular Kraken Knights, but the color scheme definitely works, and I'm not opposed to using this guy in my future Kraken army. Anyways, next up, I want to make another Orc Cultist. I'm really addicted to these guys. For this one, we're going to grab a red cape and this combo of dark armor, much like the first guy that we made earlier. His head is from one of the Hobbit figs that we used a minute ago, and I think that makes sense to use here as it has a similar vibe. I had a lot of fun making these 3 Orc Cultists, so if you'd like to see me make a mock for these guys in the future, let me know in the comments. Okay, and next up we're going to take another one of those small red cloaks and a tournament helmet. Dark red is the best accent color for the Ravens, so this cape blends in wonderfully with them, and it's a nice upgrade to my previous version of this knight who used a pretty ugly, kind of plasticky cape. It looked really bad. Next, let's try to upgrade a couple of Crown Knights. For this first one, I'm going to grab an orange cape and this waist scabbard. Orange looks fantastic with the blue of the Crown Knights, so I also grabbed these dual molded brown and orange legs that go really nicely with this knight. But for our next crownie, I'm going to go for a more traditional look with a blue cape and lots of silver armor. This is a classic look for the 2013 Crown Knights, and to finish off the figure, I'm going to give him a Dane Axe. To use up the last of the blue capes, I definitely need to make a Black Falcon with one. I don't think I've even made one in this video yet. So for this guy, I've also grabbed some gorgeous silver printed armor by Cultbricks, which honestly probably sticks out a little too much in my Falcon army. This guy's a bit too flashy. But he looks really sick, so who cares? And since we're on the Falcons, I want to try making a Black Falcon Archer with one of these Mando cape replacements. As you can see, it has a similar look to the ones that LEGO makes, but with a slight curve in it that goes beautifully on knights. It also has some similarities to the flowing Batman capes that have been coming out in the past few years. As does this green cape that we made a few other figs with earlier. A lot has been said about the physical texture and feel of these capes, but I think the flowing curved designs are probably more important to how these capes actually look when on display. Like this green dragon looks so much more believable due to the realistic cut and shape of the cape. Also, I kind of like how these silver and dark armor combine together on this fig. It's a combination that I don't think I've ever done before, but I think it looks pretty decent. Next, we're going to grab another one of these capes to make a Dwarven Lord with a brown beard and hair. I love how these dual molded legs work for the dwarves, as most short legs don't really have any printing or details, so getting that dual tone color just looks really nice and adds in a lot of detail. Now we're also going to upgrade a Black Falcon Princess with a very simple cloak. This is a fantastic way to make any character look like they're on the move, like they're traveling. The dark tan color also just works well as a standard cloak, and you could even pair this with a hood to really sell the idea. Okay, so I've only got a few more of these black cloaks left, so I can use them to upgrade some of my darker factions. This Red Dragon Knight, for example, uses some more Sith robes from Star Wars, and I think it blends in decently well with the cloak's shape. For our next dragon, I want to try out this cape though. The brown color is normally not what I'd use on them, but I think this shade is dark enough for it to work. I also wanted to try out this elven weapon on the sheath, and I'm happy to say that it works really well with the cape, and it doesn't slide around at all. Even some of the other sword types are sliding around more than this. And for our 50th fig, I want to upgrade one of my custom Fright Knights. We'll grab a fur cloak and another one of those slings. Out of all of the shield types that I've tried today with this sling, I think the ovoid shield looks the best on a fig's back. The way it sits at a slight angle is just so satisfying, and even though it's a bit harder to set up than the Viking shield, I think it looks a lot better. Next up, we're going to continue on with the Fright Knights and make a human version of Basil the Batlord before he was turned into a vampire. I used the same sling technique, and I also found these Star Wars legs that blend in shockingly well with the Batlord torso. The knee pads are maybe a bit too futuristic looking, but I think it still works fine for a knight. Next, we'll grab the last brown fur cape and the last sling to make a final orc warrior. This cape goes beautifully with the armor that I have on him. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but these fur capes add so much to the Orcs aesthetic and the Wolfpack's aesthetic, to be honest with you. Those are the two factions that I think look the absolute best with these fur capes. As do these black cloaks. I've said it over and over again in this video, but they go beautifully on any dark faction that you have. So for this red dragon, I also took the last neck sheath for him to display a sword. Our final Fright Knight of the video will get a skirt piece with a knife on her hip. This is another super simple combo, but it makes her look so much more unique than all of my other Fright Knights. And our very last Wolfpack will also get maybe my favorite upgrade of the video. We're going to take another black cape with a sheath and add a quiver on top of it with a Rivendell longsword. This combo looks so beautiful, and it's a great way to upgrade the very first Wolfpack bandit that I ever made back when the Medieval Town Square first came out. This face print is just the best for the Wolfpack. Next, I'll grab the last of the black flowing capes to upgrade my Snake Knight soldiers. These ones work nicely on pretty much any type of fig, but I found the lesser armored characters tend to look better with this style of cape. I don't know why, but it just does. On the second one, I also wanted to give her a standard Lego scabbard made out of plastic, just to show that the pre-molded parts don't look too out of place with the cloth ones. We've only got a few more capes left, so I'm going to take the last fur one to upgrade the Snake Queen. I think this one matches better than the Wolfpack one that I used previously, and it just looks really clean. With the last basic cape that we had left, I wanted to try making a tiefling adventurer that was turned into a zombie. I think it turned out looking pretty well with the face print, and I'm kind of working on a medieval zombie apocalypse video, so stay on the lookout for that sometime soon. And last but not least, we have this olive cape that I'm going to use to make an old Viking raider with a braided white beard. And that's all the figs. If you want to check out any of the capes that you saw today, you can find them on Minifig Realms' website. If you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe? I basically only make LEGO Castle videos, so if you're into that, check out some of my other stuff on my channel. And here's a special thanks to Gyojo and Faisal for directly supporting the channel along with the other YouTube members. If you want to see some extra exclusive content and see your name in the credits of my videos, then consider becoming a YouTube member with more information that you can find in the description. And as always, thank you all so much for watching.